Welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. You're back in college and you've just been assigned a massive 90-page senior thesis. Now, this isn't some simple weekend assignment. You have a whole year to do it. So if you're anything like the writer and thinker Tim Urban, you sit down, you map it all out, and you think to yourself, all right, I've absolutely got this.
But notice how that perfect, highly logical plan completely disintegrates. At 1 year out, it's just an easy staircase. A little work here, a little work there. How hard can climbing stairs be, right? But then, the first few months just kind of fly by. Nothing happens. 6 months left. 0 words written. Suddenly there's only 1 month left. And then 1 week. And then you wake up and there are exactly 3 days until the absolute final deadline with, you guessed it, 0 words written. So what you do the literal only thing you physically can do. You sit down, pull 2 massive all-nighters, which, by the way, human bodies are absolutely not designed to do, and you sprint write 90 pages in 72 straight hours, practically sprinting across campus in slow motion to hand it in at the exact final second. Now, you might be thinking this is the part where the story ends with some triumphant stroke of genius. A week goes by, the university calls, they ask, "Are you Tim Urban?" They tell him they need to talk about his thesis because it's the absolute best one they've ever seen in the history of the school. Right? Nope, not even close. As Urban brilliantly put it, it was a very, very bad thesis. It was terrible. But, this hilarious, chaotic failure actually sparked a really deep curiosity in him. Why do we do this to ourselves? What is actually happening in our heads when we put off our most important work? To figure this out, Urban took a metaphorical look inside the brain. Imagine a normal, productive person's brain. It's perfectly steered by the rational decision maker. But the procrastinator's brain, well, it has a stowaway. It also has that rational decision maker, but sitting right next to it, literally holding on to the steering wheel, is a very different character, the Instant Gratification Monkey. So, who exactly is this monkey? Well, the Instant Gratification Monkey is a creature that lives entirely in the present moment. It has 0 memory of the past, absolutely 0 knowledge of the future, and really only cares about 2 things: maximizing what is easy and what is fun. Now, in the animal kingdom, this works perfectly. If you're a dog and your whole life is doing easy and fun things, you're a massive success. But humans have civilization. We have long-term goals. The rational decision maker knows this, but the monkey simply violently grabs the wheel and changes the plan. And let me tell you, when the monkey takes over, things get weird. The rational decision maker says, "Okay, time to do some productive work." But the monkey says, "No way. Let's read the entire Wikipedia page on the Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding scandal because I just remembered that happened." Then suddenly you're checking the fridge to see if anything magically appeared in the last 10 minutes. Then it's a massive YouTube spiral, starting with physicist Richard Feynman explaining magnets and ending hours later watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. The monkey just looks at the clock and says, "Oops, out of time to work today. Sorry." And all of this leads us directly to a place every single procrastinator knows way too well: the dark playground. It's this bizarre leisure zone you enter when you are technically supposed to be working. The fun you're having here isn't actually fun. It's entirely unearned. Because you have these massive obligations hovering right over you, the air in the dark playground is thick with guilt, dread, anxiety, and self-hatred. You aren't working, but you definitely aren't relaxing or enjoying yourself either. It is just an agonizing emotional cycle. So seeing this endless loop of Justin Bieber interviews and crushing guilt, we really have to ask a critical question here. How does the procrastinator ever actually get anything done? I mean, if the monkey is always looking for easy and fun, and the rational decision maker is totally powerless to stop it, how does anyone graduate college? How do massive projects get finished? Well, there is a third character in this neurological drama, a chaotic savior. Enter the panic monster. The sheer, unbridled power of this creature is literally the procrastinator's only hope. You see, the panic monster spends most of its time completely dormant, just fast asleep. But the moment a deadline gets too close, or there's a sudden risk of public embarrassment, career disaster, or failing a massive class, the panic monster violently wakes up. And here is the magic ingredient. The panic monster is the only thing on Earth that the instant gratification monkey is absolutely terrified of. Let me show you exactly how this plays out, using Tim Urban's own experience of getting invited to give a TED Talk. Step 1, he accepts the invitation. A lifelong dream, right? Step 2, he realizes he has to actually write the talk. So obviously the monkey takes over and he spends 2.5 hours staring at Google Maps, slowly zooming in from the bottom of India all the way to the top just to, educate himself. Step 3, Ted officially publishes the speaker lineup. Urban goes to the website and sees his own face staring back at him. And step 4, the panic monster loses its absolute mind. It wakes up screaming. The monkey flees up a tree in pure terror, and suddenly, finally, the rational decision maker has the wheel back. Look, it's not pretty, but in the end, it works. This bizarre, incredibly stressful 3-character system, the rational decision maker, the monkey, and the panic monster, is exactly how a master procrastinator functions. It completely explains how someone can spend 2 whole weeks failing to write the first sentence of a thesis and then magically churn out 8 pages in a single night. The system functions. It genuinely gets short-term, deadline-driven projects across the finish line. And this is where we really need to shift gears. This is not the whole story. After Urban wrote about this monkey and the panic monster on his blog, something completely unexpected happened. He received thousands of emails from people all over the world. Nurses, bankers, artists, engineers, PhD students. And they were all writing to say the exact same thing. I have this problem. But Urban noticed a very heavy contrast between the light, comedic tone of his writing and the deep, profound heaviness in these messages. People were writing to him in immense pain.
To truly understand this pain, we have to realize that we're dealing with 2 very different types of procrastination. First, you have deadline procrastination. The effects here are contained to the short term because the panic monster eventually wakes up and saves the day. It causes temporary stress, sure, but you survive. On the other hand, we have no deadline procrastination. And because there's absolutely no external due date for this stuff, the panic monster never wakes up. It just sleeps forever. So the emotional result isn't a quick burst of stress. It's a deep, agonizing, long-term regret.
So what falls into this no deadline category? Well, pretty much all the truly important things in life. Want to start your own business or finally write that book? There's no built-in deadline for that. Getting in shape and taking care of your health? No deadline. Visiting your aging parents? Working on your marriage? Or finally getting out of a toxic relationship? None of these things have a boss or a professor waiting for a 90-page paper on Friday. Therefore, the panic monster is never, ever going to show up to scare the monkey away. And this reveals the real tragedy of the instant gratification monkey. These people weren't writing to Tim Urban because they were stressed out about a cram session for a final exam. They were writing because they felt like spectators in their own lives. Long-term, deadline-free procrastination doesn't just stop you from achieving your dreams. It stops you from ever even starting them. The frustration isn't about failing. It's about being entirely paralyzed right on the starting line indefinitely.
This realization brings us to a profound truth. We are all procrastinators. Now, you might be watching this explainer thinking, well, hold on, I don't cram for tests. I'm highly organized. I literally have color-coded spreadsheets for my daily tasks. And that's great. You've mastered deadline procrastination. But remember the monkey's absolute most devious trick. It thrives in the quiet spaces where deadlines don't exist. So even if you are incredibly put together on the surface, you are almost certainly suffering from this invisible, deadline-free procrastination in some major, deeply personal area of your life. I want you to think about the number 90. Just imagine a grid with one tiny box for every single week in a 90-year human life. It sounds like a lot of weeks, right? But when you actually plot it out on what Tim Urban calls a life calendar, it fits on a single, surprisingly small sheet of paper. There are very few boxes on that grid. And the absolute scariest part, if you're an adult watching this, you've already crossed out a massive chunk of those boxes. They're just gone. There is no endless expanse of time waiting for you to finally get started. So what are you putting off? Because everyone has something. We need to be hyper-aware of that instant gratification monkey, especially when there are no alarms to wake up the panic monster for us. Because there just aren't that many weeks left on the calendar. We have to take the wheel back ourselves. It's a job that literally has to start today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.